Well, let's talk a little bit about rebuilding Illinois' finances.
Sure.
So we find ourselves in the bottom five or at the bottom in sole possession in almost every quality of life metric and financial solvency metric. And I wonder how you would reflect on Mike Madigan's tenure for 3 decades when 3 decades later Illinois finds itself where it finds itself.
Sure. And I can understand why some people try to equate that longevity with a responsibility for all the problems. He'll take his share of the blame for things that have happened. He'll take some credit for things that he didn't let happen. There were several tax increases along the way that he opposed, and I think people remember that. But I like to point out he's never signed a bill. He's never appointed an agency head, determined where pension fund monies ought to be invested. So he's only part of a process for a long time headed by Republicans, more recently headed by a couple of Democrats, one who just got his prison sentence reaffirmed the other day.
Madigan was his co-campaign chairman in the re-election campaign in 2006,
yeah,
I remember.
And then, as you remember, that all soured pretty quickly, and Madigan became Rod Blagojevich's boogeyman along the way. So we were around some of these things. We weren't around the idea that the pensioners need a 3% compounded COLA. We weren't around an early retirement plan that helped really worsen some of the pension issues. But, we've also been part of how many 100 school reform ideas. The most recent one, I think, the magic idea was, well, let's make it harder for Chicago teachers to strike. That'll improve the learning of our children.
And then there was a strike 18 months later.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not real reform. I can see that point, but
it's a term that gets reform is a badly used word, Dan, and I think you would agree with that.
Well, I think as the Tribune opined when Larry Bloom went to jail in Chicago, even the reformers go to jail. So reform means some things differently in Chicago and Illinois than perhaps it means in the rest of the free world.